So Susan, we were talking earlier about a number of things, including your hopefulness about the state, about humankind's capacity to rise to the occasion and actually make change. Maybe we should start there. Clear about a number of things, including your hopefulness for the future of the world and of humankind.
I have the sense that the world and creation is much greater than humans, and also that we're an aspect of that creation. And I believe we work together with creation, and that we'll be given the unity and the insight and the solutions, and we will work together to find the answers. And I think there are things that are going on that we don't completely know consciously, that we may be unconscious about, and we may be responding in ways that we may be participating in a grand scheme that is not really completely evident. I think the main problem that faces humanity is greed, and how that is misused by people in power. And I think that the bad actions, those people are still in the minority, and that through awareness, which is being facilitated by communication and education, is the key, I believe, to coming up with being aware of the problems and how we join together and find the solutions. I think I am very convinced that humans can. I think we don't know all the things that are being developed and all the things that are being explored right now. And I think a lot of the solutions are already discovered and in process of being implemented. And I think it's a really exciting time to be alive and watch these come together. I think if you look back through history, humanity has faced many terrible crises and found the way to get through. And I think keeping in mind that the earth is much greater than us is really where the faith can be held with that understanding.
So I'm aware that we're sitting in your house, and in the background, folks might hear the river, and certainly they might hear the cats coming and going and sneezing. It's a very much sort of normal, everyday house. So, in a couple of weeks, you're heading back to Mongolia. And I don't know how many, I think a lot of people don't know about your project there. And maybe you could say a little bit about it and about this upcoming trip.
We're very interested in a particular band of Tsatsan. There are 400 nomadic reindeer herders known as the Tsatsan who are remaining in the world. So they're a very diminishing group of people who hold knowledge that's very ancient. And they're in the most remote part of Mongolia, in the far north, near the Siberian border. And we have visited the East Taiga and met with one band, which we're planning to revisit. And then we want to also extend our exploration into the West Taiga. Our interest is in preserving these traditions and also learning from them. They're clearly capable of living in ways that we may forget as a human species, and I believe that and so does John, that this is very important knowledge. So we're going to be returning to visit the Tsatsan and see if we can record their traditional shamanic practices, and also see if we can understand their way of life. And we'll be submitting it to archives and writing articles and videotaping the rituals and some of the practices and interviewing people in the encampment.
You mentioned John. Perhaps you could tell the viewers something about your partner.
Well, John, we've been colleagues since 1995. We first began research in China, and very compatible. We have so much in common, and we're now a couple. And he's an anthropologist and also a videographer, and we're both explorers, and we get along, and we find the adventure very interesting, and we're willing to forego comforts in order to go to these extreme, difficult distances to achieve in order to record these practices the idea is to record them for humanity in case these are lost, that they will still have some record. What I grew up in the Choctaw tribe as a tribal member, and when I grew up, many of the traditions had been lost, most of them in fact, and it's been one of the sad parts of my life that there was no record that I could turn to when I was emerging in my gift and seeking my way, being in the world with my particular configuration. And so I look at these cultures that are on the edge of vanishing and think at some point these descendants may need this knowledge, and they may need some way to return to these practices, and there will be a repository of information that they can tap into. So that's one of the reasons I'm certainly engaged. And John and I work really well together. We plan these expeditions. This is another flag expedition. It's an award by the Explorers Club, and it's deemed significant contribution to humanity. And so it's quite an honor to be a flag carrier for a mission like this. So we'll do the best we can and come back with something hopefully very significant.
Many people know you as a healer, and I'm wondering whether you would be willing to speak a little bit about your contact with the healers that you met in Mongolia, and a little bit about how long it takes to get to reach them. And then I guess the other piece of that would be how you see these journeys feeding your own healing practice.
Last summer we did an expedition to Inner Mongolia, and also we extended that into Mongolia. And my work in China started, as I mentioned before, in 1995, and that was the beginning of seeking to see if shamans were still even practicing these ancient techniques. And after the communist rule, we found that it was very dangerous and still prohibited to be engaging in these practices. And so over the 11 years that followed subsequently, we were very careful to protect the shamans that we had filmed, and we'd made a documentary at that point called The Drums of the Ancestors, which is still in distribution and can be obtained through the Foundation for Shamanic Studies. And so the reason I'm backing up to that beginning is because it's a whole basis of the work in that part of the world. What happened after that is the communist government began to recognize their shamans as a potential resource to be reclaimed for the benefit of the population who were having significant trouble with a lot of the changes that were occurring in China, and they didn't have enough psychologists and counselors and social workers to address all these difficulties, and so they wanted to reinstate shamanism back into their culture. And I then became the leading expert, and they requested that I come back and work with the officials and with the commissions to come up with a plan. And which I did in 2006, and I was their guest and wound up on television, primetime news, and my full regalia playing the drum. And there was a lot of tension around that because of the media coverage. People were really nervous that they were going to get in trouble. It escalated to that level of notoriety, and I was told not to perform anything real and to do a fake act, and I refused and went ahead and scattered the seeds of these renewing revival of the shamanic practices, and worked to clear away the obstacles. And at that point, because no one got in trouble, it became safe then, and the shamans became willing then to step forward and begin their practices. And then it was just a matter of years before people were really able to utilize the help that the shamans were providing. And so our mission in last summer was to go back and visit one of these rising stars who was elevated to the highest status in her tradition of Daour, which is an ethnicity in China. And we had heard that she had clinics and she kept records, and so we went to visit her. And that is where I'll begin to really answer your question now that I've given you this background. By that time, I was well known in China when I went back this last summer, and people knew of my history. They knew of my background. I had donated my costume to a museum and made this contribution to their society. And so I had a wonderful reception, red carpet. They paid for all these wonderful accommodations and transportation, and they gave these banquets, and it was a wonderful welcome. And the shaman performed a ceremony on my behalf to elevate my status and to help me in my work. And what she did is she opened the door to her ancestors, which she considered to have a common root with my ancestors. She identified that we were, in fact, related in that way, that my ancestors had migrated from the Lake Baikal region 700 years ago, and that hers had stayed in that region, and that I hadn't been giving gifts and recognition to my ancestors simply because I didn't know that they existed. And so this ceremony was to reinstate me with this access to this elemental root. And it was a tremendous honor and a big step of growth for me to find that I had this great resource of ancestry that I had never explored before. And so I've come back since that time and experimented in my own practice what that exactly means. And it's an interesting experience for me, because what I find is that I'm still me in this very basic way, and I work very basically, consistently the way I always have. But there is this joy of tremendous access of help that is right there. All I need to do is to part the veil and to request it. And it's a wonderful feeling to be supported and buoyed up by this capacity. And I have noticed that I've had some very challenging situations in my practice where people's lives have been on the line, and my diagnosis needed to be really accurate, or they could have died. And I was able to have the correct diagnosis, and they got the help they needed, so their lives were saved. And so it's a great comfort for me to know that I expanded into this gift that the shaman Sushingwa granted me. We did videotape this, and not just me, but we showed her doing healing with her clients, and other ceremonies, and that's now a video documentary that we've completed. And the thing I'm most proud of in this documentary is we had an opportunity to have the chants translated from Daur, their traditional language, into English, and we put them as subtitles. And it's very poetic and a great contribution, in my opinion, to the field.
That's great.
So going on, when we went to Mongolia, that was a really beautiful event because somehow the shamans recognized me. Without me saying anything, they identify me in a way that is welcoming. They're willing to work with me and talk with me. And this time, this part of the trip, John was given the opportunity. Do you want to pause? So going on, what we did then is we extended our journey into going to Mongolia, and we happened to choose the most remote area of Mongolia and the hardest to get to. And what we were really seeking were traditional shamans whose practice had never been broken. And so that's why we went to the Tsatsen, who were the most remote. We figured that if we could find them, they're nomads, then we would have an opportunity to see what practice was like that had not been oppressed seriously by the government. So we did find them, and this shaman was very receptive. There was this woman, her name is Good Flower, also known as Satsig. She identified me as a shaman of equal status and gave me reverence, and it was a beautiful synergy, a camaraderie that we shared. And with John, she took him as her student, very ceremoniously, and it was something that he hadn't exactly requested, which was also made it even more interesting, but simply went through that and just proclaimed, "Now you are my student." And that was the beginning of an alliance. And then we were welcomed back, and that is the shaman we're going to go back to see now and see what will be the next step with her. We are left with lots of questions that we didn't even think to ask at that time. We've had time for all this information to settle in, and now we know we can build on what it is that we're really seeking. And so we have questions, and we'll be pursuing that extension of information and getting more footage. And then we hope to finish the second video documentary. We have a portion of it completed, but we want to have more extensive knowledge.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to hearing about the trip when you get back.
Thanks.
It's quite exciting. Anything else that you want to share?
I think I'd like to share that there's something so beautiful in that communion when the drum is played, no matter what culture, that I find myself in these different settings from around the world. And there's something where the human heart sings with the resonance of the spiritual dimension that elevates the potential. And it's so simple, and it's so effective, and it's so universal. And that is what I appreciate about what I'm finding in all these journeys and travels, is that this simplicity is elemental. It is human quality of experience, and I celebrate it, and I really appreciate it, and I feel quite privileged to have an opportunity to share it with others.